Mom, Dad, it is your responsibility to be careful of what environment your child grows in. You gotta be careful the spirits you begin to expose that child to. Be careful of the words you say around the child. Be careful of the environment you expose the child to. Beware of what you say to the hearing of the child. Is it because what you say to the hearing of the child is captured in the mind of the child? Listen, every aspect of that child is as active as you as an adult. See, don't forget this, that looking at the child as a child or as an infant does not mean that the child is an infant. There are hidden aspects of that child that are very much active. The soul of that child pre-existed the time. In fact, the spirit of that child lived before the manifestation of that child in a physical body. The intellect of that child begins to process information. The soul, the mind, the intellect, the will, and every faculty of the child's mind begins to undergo true development. So the influences you allow the child to come under begins to form, influence, or control, or create what the child becomes. If you don't get it right now, get the child exposed to the right music, to the right spirit, to the right words, to the right visuals, you will lose the child in the future. What every child struggles with is usually from within, not from without. You as a parent is responsible for what goes into the child during his infant stage. What goes into the child determines the future and what the child becomes. The books you expose your child to will influence his intellect, and he begins to think in that line. The Bible says a man is what he thinketh, and you think from what you've loaded your intellect with. Your intellect is what processes the knowledge that you've loaded into it. We are a function of the things we have accumulated, either through studies, experiences, exposures, and relational exposures. The Bible says evil communication corrupts good manner. I don't care who you are. If you keep the wrong friends, you will be corrupted. Why? That's the wisdom of God. It is certain. You can say, well, he can't influence me. You will be influenced. In other words, be careful of what type of children your kids mingle with. How to determine the family your children should connect with. Check the family out. Investigate the family that you connect your kids to. Be careful of families you expose your kids to. 90% of the times, it is not about what the child is under. It is what the child watches that influences and programs his mind. Don't mess with the innocence of a child. Don't destroy the innocence of a child with wrong exposures. I don't care what you've become. Some of you have finished. that you're finished, please don't finish the innocent child. That you're full of anger, greed, or covetous, or insecurity, or depression, or whatever it is that you're going through, don't transfer such wickedness into that child. Better you don't bring a child into this world than to bring that child and got the child exposed to the wrong environment, wrong words. You gotta be careful that the earliest formative phase of the child is very critical. If you miss it in that stage, in that phase, you've lost the child. I don't think so. God will change him in the future. That's the problem of religion. Religion has never worked. We mess with the foundation. We mess with the earliest phases of our lives, thinking that we can go free over time. No, sir. Mom, Dad, it's your responsibility to be careful of what environment your child grows in. Don't let your child play with the wrong children. There are children whose parents are careless. They drink in their front. They have sex in their front. They do all kinds of nonsense in their front. They don't put parental control on the TV or even on their gadgets. And these kids have access to wrong visuals, wrong images. Over time, these images are loading into their emotions, loading into the faculties of their minds. And over time, it becomes the stronghold that the kids deal with. Every child ought not to have strongholds that are negative. Expose that child to beautiful heavenly music, preachings, for the 5 IT, the tongues of the Spirit. This child that is in your hand could become something you could never believe. The child can be so terrible, the child can end up a monster. The child can end up a wonderful child in the future. All depends on your prayers, but not prayers alone. All depends on the influences you allow the child to come under. Be careful of what you do. Be careful of exposures. Be careful of what happens around the child. Spirits travel through various frequencies. Humans are hosts of different high forces. You must understand that through sound, a spirit can permeate a child. Through the eyes of a child, a spirit can enter a child. Through the hearing of the child, a spirit can enter a child. Through instincts, through abuses, through anger. You see, when the atmosphere is filled with anger, wrath, immorality, a spirit can enter that child. You must understand that the innocence of a child must be secured. The vulnerability of a child must be protected. You must be the gatekeeper of the innocence of that child, because in that phase of that child is a formative season. It's a critical season. Whatever gets into that child begins the stronghold, begins the formation of a stronghold in that child. Mothers and fathers, take charge of what happens to your child. The child is in your hand. God has provided you all the tools, all the scriptures, all the wisdom required to raise the child in the ways of the Lord. Train up a child in the way he should go. God will not train your child up. Your enemies will not train up your child. Your friends will not train up your child. It is your responsibility. It is your duty. It is your own role to train up that child in the ways of God, or you will lose the child in the future. What the child becomes is a function of the influences you've allowed to come through, across, within, and without the child. In the sense that God says at this stage of 1 day young to 7 years or even to 8 years, that child must be carefully secured. Provide the right environment for the growth of the child. I don't want our children to be exposed to contrary spirits. Spirits are very ancient and very wicked. Spirits are highly very controlling and unbelievably manipulative. And it's important that we understand the importance of protecting our children from being influenced or possessed by contrary demonic spirits. You see, a demon, after having possessed a child, does manifest through rebelliousness. You see a child become extremely rebellious. A child begins to curse the mom or dad. You see unusual disobedience, unusual attitude. You're wondering, what is this? Why is this child acting this way? A spirit has taken control of that child's conduct. You see a child begin to act in a weird way. You're asking, where is this coming from? A spirit has got in. You must understand that human hosts are hosts of higher spirits for expression. Rebelliousness is a spirit. When that spirit enters a child, the child will automatically become rebellious. Disobedience to parental instructions are influences of higher causes or spirits. When a child is developing and you see that the child is more acting disobediently or rebelliously, you must now say, what type of spirits am I exposing the child to? What type of carelessness have I allowed to open the gates of satanic influences to have captured the innocence of my child? If you know how to develop and protect the innocence of a child, you will be able to navigate through that child to a point that that child will be so obedient, so loving, so kind, because the child has been filled with the virtues of heaven. Everybody must be careful. Spirits are seeking for expression. We cannot have rebellious children. We cannot have depressed children. We cannot have children with addictions. We cannot have that. You see, look at the thing that distresses you about your child. I'm also talking about some of you that have grown-up children. Your children have so grown that you're angry. You're no longer happy with them. Everything they do irritates you. Why? Because higher forces have gained control over your kids. It all began from childhood. The Bible says when they grow old, they will not depart from it. So it means that it all begins from the infant age. If you get it wrong in the foundation level, you will lose it in the future. Train up a child in the way he must go, and when he is old. So the security of the future of your child is a function of the beginnings of that child.
The tribe of Enoch, the nation of fire, presents Global Roar for All Nations with the bondservant of Christ, John.
Roar for your nation!
Join Pastor John Anosike to war for nations Every country must be represented. Register now and be part of the Roar for Nations with Pastor John Anosike by scanning the QR code on the screen. Date: Saturday, the 7th of December, 2024. Time: 6 p.m. Central African Time. Venue: 284 Voortrekker Road, Maitland, Cape Town, South Africa.
We are war! See you in the realms.